In this video, I'm going to disclose a little bit of very personal, very private financial information about myself. Within the past year, at one point within the past year, the government tried to take all my money. This is a true story. I was given an opportunity to respond to them when they made it known to me that they were going to take all my money. My response was, okay, have at it. Now you see just one of many reasons they call me Crazy Lake. And again, a shout out to Aiden and Aiden's grandmother way out there in Bakersfield, California. We're in Virginia, opposite side of the country. Sent me this shirt and that wonderful sign about the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch area, stay on the trails. Sent me some nice gifts. And just so you'll know, Aiden and Aiden's grandmother, because they wrote me a little note that said they watch the show all the time. I love this shirt. It's made of very thin material, and I wear it regularly in the mornings when I mountain bike because it's just not heavy, you know. So here's what's going on. I wanted to talk about this issue, about the government trying to take all my money here at one point within the last year. But my beautiful bride dearly, AKA Giggly Girl, kept saying, no, that's too personal. That's too private. That's too personal. That's too private. But I just felt maybe it could help someone. Maybe it might help somebody. And we've done that on the channel. You know, we've shared some hardships we've been through, some challenges. And though, you know, the vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges, and there's numerous of them out there, they view that as a sign of weakness and an opportunity to attack, and they do in hordes. There's always been at least one person that has said in the comment section, wow, I'm going through this same thing right now. You just helped me solve my problem. So 1,000 troll attacks is worth one person we can help. So that's why I'm going to share this personal, this private. We get millions of views a month, and I'm throwing this out there about the government coming to take all my money here at some point in the last year. I just don't care. If it helps somebody, it's worth it. Okay? I'm not embarrassed. I don't care. But here's why I'm sharing it with you. I've been having a slew of visitors this summer because I've reconnected with family members I've been out of touch with for 10 years. I've reconnected with two of my childhood best friends that are like brothers to me that I've been out of touch with for more than 10 years. And a gentleman came by yesterday with his beautiful wife and their beautiful son, who's only a year older than my son, and they hit it off like crazy. And this kid, Alex, here I am, caught a catfish like this out of our pond. It's the only time anybody's actually caught a catfish out of our pond. They had a blast. And the kid had never caught a fish before in his life. So he caught 2 bluegills. The first bluegill was the first fish he ever caught. Then he caught another. And Daniel caught some bluegills too. But then Alex caught that freaking, it was a blue cat. Just amazing. He will remember that always. And so will we. And we have pictures. That's great. But my friend, we grew up together in Appalachistan. He served in the Navy, the United States Navy, for 4 years. The real Navy. He wasn't one of these D-bags that was in ROTC in college and identifies as having served in the Navy because his ROTC instructor was a naval officer. Like that guy in that book, The Lunatic. If you haven't read it, you got to. And everybody's been asking. They're on back order, but by the end of August, we're going to have more here so you can get autographed copies. But for now, you can get them on Amazon. He was in the real Navy. He's a real veteran of the United States Armed Forces. And after that, he pursued a career in software engineering. And this career took him to Europe, Scandinavia, Denmark first. And his beautiful wife is from Denmark, and she's a lawyer. And this is like way too much private information about these people, but you don't know who they are. So, you know, I'm not outing them. Very successful people, very hardworking people, very patriotic. My friend, of course, grew up here. They're considering moving here, and his Danish wife is excited as can be because she's been visiting America for 25 years. They've been together for a quarter of a century. She loves it here. Their son loves it here. They may be moving here soon. I hope they do. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay. So it was very interesting because yesterday while we were sitting around a table, eating some food, breaking bread, as the yuppies would say, we had two Americans. Let's see, we had a Filipina, my wife, a Danish girl, my buddy's wife, two Americans who both had lived overseas in foreign countries for many, many, many years. Me in the Philippines for 6 years, Iraq for a year, my buddy in Denmark, and now they live in Sweden. When I tell you why they left Denmark to go to Sweden, your mind's going to be blown. And again, let me give my favorite preface here. I can only control what I say. I can't control how you take what I say. I'm going to be talking about multiple cultures today in this video because I'm a multicultural family. My friends are multicultural. Most of my friends are multicultural families. I mean, no offense. As I compare and contrast, I'm not saying we're better than them, they're better than us. None of that. I'm just stating facts. Take them for what they are, okay? So, this is crazy. Listen to this. One of the reasons our friends left Denmark and went to Sweden was because of regulation, taxation, all these things. I was like, oh, how bad can it be? Well, when they started telling me, it blew my mind. So they had I think it was a Ford Explorer. It was a rental car. They flew into D.C. A couple weeks ago. They went and saw all kinds of folks here over the last couple of weeks. And then they stopped by to see us before going back to D.C. And right now, as I'm making this video, they're in the sky. They're going back to Europe, going back to Sweden. So their rental car was a Ford Explorer, I believe, just a couple years old. It's probably $35 a day, I think, is the going rate. My friend explained to me that if they were to buy that car in Denmark, they would pay between $300,000 and $400,000 US dollars for it. And I was like, what? And he explained to me about the taxation, the regulation, the registration, all this stuff. He said that in Denmark, the cost to register a vehicle that you buy is 180% the price of the vehicle. I was like, you're kidding me. So you figure a Ford Explorer, and he was exaggerating a bit when he said between $300,000 and $400,000. But you figure new Ford Explorer with some bells and whistles on, it's probably going to be about $60,000. So 180% of that is 48,000 would be the 80%, 160. So 60 and 48, 108,000 to register it. True story. I mean, told to us by our friends that lived there for many years. The girl was born and raised there. So you're looking at $108,000 to own a $60,000 car. Wow. So I asked him, what people just don't have cars over there? And he goes, no, people have cars. It's just they're very tiny, they're very cheap, and they suck. So we just kept talking and talking. I just couldn't understand why things were done there. And I had to write this stuff down, and I'm probably going to pronounce it incorrectly. But he explained to me that they have it's not a law, and I Googled it and I researched it, so I can tell you the history of it. But it's basically like a cultural mindset. As the internet said, they called it Scandinavia's unspoken social norms. And it's an unspoken social norm known as, it's pronounced Jantelov, but it's spelled like this, Jantelov. We had them speak, my friend's fluent in the language. He actually has to speak it at his work because he lives over there. And his wife, of course, is. We were on the front porch, and I said, "Say this in your language, Danish." They speak Danish. And if there's anybody watching this video from Sweden, anywhere in Scandinavia, please comment and let me know if this stuff's accurate. I know we have a huge fan base in England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, UK, and we have folks from France that watch. But I don't know. I think there's been a couple people from Sweden comment. So please comment and let us know if this information is accurate. If you can confirm this, I will pin your comment. Because I'm an American. I mean, I've been around the world and I've lived in other places, but this sounds nuts. Listen to this. And again, I don't mean any offense by that. This just, as someone who was brought up in this culture and thinks, this way, this sounds very different to me. So here's how this works. Yount love, it's also known as the yaw of Yount. Okay, that's another way it's known. And my handwriting's terrible. But basically, it's this belief system that you are not to strive to be great. You are not to strive to be extraordinary. You should never try to achieve greatness. You should strive to be the same as everyone around you. You should strive for averageness. Averageness. This should be your goal in life. You are not to think that you are better than anybody at anything. Period. And I told my friend, that sounds insane. And he told me, he said, look, this is what it's called in Scandinavia. Yount love. But he said, and these are his words, not mine. He said, every European country has a similar view, but it's called something else. But this is kind of a common European mindset. Because, and this is complimentary, they focus on the society as a whole. Rather than the individual, they want to focus on the health of the society. And it's kind of thought that if somebody has the audacity to step out there and be extraordinary in anything, they're thinking more about themselves than they are the society, and they're kind of selfish, greedy, narcissistic, and they're looked down on. So, for example, Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in history, redefined the game. When he was a kid, he was driven. He would shoot hoops in his backyard down there in North Carolina where he grew up. His father would have to come out and threaten to whip his backside with a belt to come in at night because he kept shooting until well after dark. And there's a story I heard about one time his dad went out to get him to come in. He walked outside, pitch black dark, no moon, and he heard thum, 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 whoosh, swish, nothing but net. Thum, 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 swish, nothing but net. His son, Michael Jordan, was shooting foul shots in the pitch black dark. And he was making every one of them, wasn't missing. And his dad asked him, how are you making these shots? He went out to whip his backside because he won't come in because he's out there so driven to be the greatest. Said, you can't even see the rim. How are you making these shots? He says, I don't need to see it, Dad. I know where it is. That's an example of greatness. So we kept talking, and I whispered to my friend, and again, all countries in this world that I visited, everybody's great. Everybody's great everywhere, in my opinion. I love the world. But I whispered to my friend, I said, I think this is the greatest country in the world. Here, this one, America. And isn't it a shame that we have to whisper these things? Well, his wife, who's from Denmark, and my wife, who's from the Philippines, they heard me and they said, yeah, it is. So I said, here's the question I pose to you. Why is this? Because we're all human beings. I have always been of the belief there's one race, that's the human race. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, whatever. We're all human beings, okay? Certainly entitled to equality when it comes to rights, privileges, all these things. And the answer that came up was this: ambition, drive, motivation. There's an American attitude. This attitude states no matter what endeavor we pursue, no matter how far behind we might be in the race when we enter it, we're not going to stop until we're the best. When I lived in the Philippines many years ago, I was living there when the U.S. first began participating in the World Cup. Soccer. What the rest of the world calls football. We don't call it that because we know what football really is, right? September 4th, first UVA home game. We're going to beat the dickens out of William and Mary again. Can't wait. Counting down the days. So when the U.S. began participating in the World Cup, I had a lot of friends from England. They all laughed. They thought that was the biggest joke, they'd ever heard. But one guy from England, he said, guys, I'm going to tell you what, in a few short years, America will dominate the world soccer stage. And they were like, how? How's that going to happen? These guys don't play soccer. We've dominated soccer forever. And my friend from England, who spent a lot of time in the U.S., he said, listen, it's their culture. No matter what they get into, they don't stop until they become the best in that. It's just part of who we are. And sure enough, it's happened in just a few short years. So, what's this have to do with the government coming to take my money? And how did that go down? Well, I'm going to tell you. I was in Iraq, and after Iraq, I was in the hospital, Army hospital for 6 months. I had surgery, had to go through rehab and all this stuff. Well, this guy came up to me one day, and he was in charge of like VA benefits and stuff for those of us who were at the Warriors in Transition Battalion there at Fort Lewis. Now it's Joint Air Force McChord Base Lewis, whatever. It was Fort Lewis when I was there. And he had some papers for me to sign. I said, what are these papers? He said, well, I'm filing a claim at the VA for you because you got this, all this stuff, right? And I said, I don't want to do that. He said, why? I said, because, I'll get better. It was this thing. The issue was false pride. And he explained it to me. And he explained how, VA disability, it's called VA disability. It's actually viewed as an award. We sign a contract when we enlist. We claim we will go to any terrible place in the world where terrible things are going on and do terrible things so that these good folks over here don't have to. And in exchange for that, if we get hurt while we're doing that, or if we get hurt in training while we're on active orders in preparation for doing that, they'll take care of us with VA disability, the free health care if it's service-connected injuries and whatnot, which I've dealt with recently. It took him a while to talk me into it, but I finally signed the papers. And they said, yeah, well, based upon your records and this and this and this and that, and this where, yeah, I get a little bit over $1,000 a month. This is what my wife never wanted me to tell you. And this is very personal. 60%, I'll throw the number out. I'm 60%. Okay, VA disability. For years, we needed that. We depended on that. When we were down out in the Philippines, that's how we survived. And at the time, it was less. It was like $1,038 a month, and the U.S. dollar was worth 37 pesos. We had enough money to eat, keep a roof over our head, have the utilities when we got out of the jungle, back into the city. And it kept us going until I could make it doing this and with the writing, with the books, with the journalism work I did, the blogging work I did, finally hitting pay dirt with that, Yahoo article that was a, big hit worldwide. Got my name on the map, and now we don't even notice. It's like we don't, I don't give it away, but we're no longer dependent upon it, okay? So within the last year, for some very odd reason, I got a letter from the VA that they wanted to reevaluate me. And this was odd because if you're a veteran, if you're a disabled veteran, you can actually petition the VA to reevaluate your claim or your situation. And when people do this, they're trying to get more. They're trying to say, well, I'm hurt worse than you guys said I was originally. I've never done that. And so like 10 years later, they send me this thing and I'm like, what's up with this? And so I call them up and I'm like, I didn't petition the VA for this. What is this? And they said, well, one of your conditions is a chronically inflamed lower lumbar. And they said, this is degenerative. It's probably gotten worse and we might have to give you more money. And I'm like, I don't want more money. I'm doing really well. I've learned how to live with this condition very well. Can we cancel this appointment? And they said no. And if you don't show up, they could kick you out of the VA system because they might think you're dead. So I haven't been to the VA in a few years. So I was like, okay. So I went to the appointment. I had a young doctor, and we were going over my condition. And he goes, first thing I walk in, and he's like, you don't look like the typical guy that has these things on your record. Because I walked in, actually, I'd run 3 miles that morning. I was running behind, and I went in a t-shirt and my shorts because they told me to wear that and some tennis shoes. So I went in after a 3-mile run. So we got to talk, and he's like, explain the pain. Well, and I said, this is how it hurts. This is when it hurts. He goes, so how do you deal with that? And I said, well, just in the last couple of years, I've learned that if I run every day, the pounding hurts my back to the point to where if I run too many days in a row, I can't really walk without pain. So I started mountain biking. So what I'll do is I'll run a couple days, then I'll bike 2 or 3 days. The thing, the swelling goes down, the pressure backs off, it doesn't hurt anymore. I'll go out and I'll run a couple days. Yesterday, true story, I ran for 40 minutes straight, nonstop. That's the longest I've run in some time, many years. And it felt great. But today, as a result, I had to mountain bike, because of back. But I've learned to live with it. And I told him I cut, split, and stack my own firewood. I just learned proper form. I know I've got to isolate that lower lumbar, use proper form when I'm using my sledgehammer and all this stuff. But fortunately, and I told him somebody who watches I told him I'm a YouTuber, somebody who watches these videos actually bought me a freaking gas-powered log splitter. So that's taking a lot of the pressure off my back. And he just kept, this is amazing. It's like, you're not even hurt. I said, I am, but listen, instead of using what you guys call a disability, I don't like that word. Instead of using my challenge as an excuse not to do the things I love, I've learned how to live around it so I can continue to do the things I love. And he was just like, wow, mind blown, right? So I leave after the appointment, and I get this letter in the mail from the VA about 30 days later, and it was the doctor's summary. And the doctor basically said, this veteran should lose all of his VA disability. He manages to live a normal life despite his conditions. We shouldn't give him anything. We shouldn't give him any money at all. I read that, and you know what my response was? I laughed. I laughed because I didn't care. I don't care. Well, my wife, she didn't laugh. When I told her about it a couple days later, she was livid. And I was given like 30 days to respond, where I could respond and say why I felt I should still get it and blah, blah, blah. I never did it. I never contested that doctor's decision. And my wife couldn't understand, but I told her, I said, listen, honey, and this is the truth and this is from the heart. For many years, we needed that money. When we were in the Philippines, if we hadn't had that money, we would have starved. But we don't need it now because of the actions we've taken on our own. Okay, I might not be able to go get that warehouse job because of my back, or I might not be able to go whatever job because of my age now. I've kind of aged out of most opportunities. But I've figured out a way to create income streams on my own with my writing, with social media. I'm dependent on no one. I've got to follow some rules. I've got to follow some guidelines, like here on YouTube, the community guidelines and policies that, frankly, I think are easy to follow. I just don't come on here and talk about hating people based upon race, religion, ethnicity, gender identification, sexual. How hard is that? Because I don't hate anybody because of those superficial reasons anyway. I can come on here, I can be myself, and we never have to worry about finances. And so many of the wonderful folks that watch buy the books and they love the books. It's just, I don't need this. But there's probably a veteran out there who does. So if they take this from me and they give it to the next guy, or they give it to the next girl who needs that boost for just a few years, to get them a little further down the road to where they can figure out how to live around their conditions so they can live their lives to the fullest despite their, challenges. I have no problem with that. And we went around about that a couple times, but she finally saw I wasn't going to budge. I didn't care. So we were fully anticipating within 30 days these benefits being canceled. Well, we got a letter about 30 days after that or whatever from the review board, and the judge overseeing, a military man, smart man, or could have been a woman, they scolded this doctor. They pretty much said, and their letter of response was, shame on this doctor for saying we should take the benefits away from this. They call me a disabled veteran. I call it somebody who's got a few issues. You got to figure out how to live around it. They said he exemplifies what we wish more people who have these conditions would do. Learn how to continue to live a fully functional life despite these conditions. Shame on you, doctor. We're not taking a penny away from this man. And they didn't. And I still get what I got. Now, you say, you should give it back. Making all that YouTube money, making all those books. Trust me, I do. And more. It doesn't cover my taxes monthly. Trust me. They're getting 4 times as much back in taxes. And I don't have a problem paying those taxes. And again, I'm not trying to brag, and I'm disclosing information. My wife would be livid if she knew I was disclosing. I hope she doesn't watch this video. We live in a great country when, despite afflictions that most people say would keep us from pursuing greatness, we are still able to pursue and achieve it. Now, I'm not saying I'm great, but I do what I love every day, and my family is supported by me doing what I love. And it's in direct opposition of this concept of whatever, I can't even pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. But I want to point this out. I gotta get it. Because I wrote down somebody's name. When I was Googling this and researching this and stuff, you know what it reminded me of? My second most favorite book ever. My favorite book ever. It was funny. I was at a UVA tailgate party a couple years ago before COVID hit, and I was talking to this lady from Virginia Beach who came up to watch a game. She's a retired advanced placement English teacher, and we were just small talking. Her husband was there. He's a retired history teacher, and we were talking about literature, books, writing, because I told them I was a writer. They asked me, they said, what is your favorite book ever? What do you think is the best book ever written? And you know what I said to her? I said, you're probably going to laugh at me for this because this doesn't come up as most people's number one. But the best book I've ever read, and my favorite author is Stephen King. I love Ernest Hemingway. I love Mark Twain. I love Michael Crichton. None of these guys wrote this book. John Steinbeck wrote the book. It was called The Grapes of Wrath. Their jaws dropped and they stared at me, and I thought, oh my gosh, I just proved myself to be a dumb hillbilly from West by God, Virginia. Then the woman said that for the last 20 years, she had taught a class, an entire semester-long class based on that book, because she believes The Grapes of Wrath is pretty much the story of America. It's a story about how no matter how far down we get, we never give up. Okay? We pursue greatness because otherwise, what is life for? Could you imagine rolling out of bed every day to achieve averageness, to achieve sameness? Why would you even get out of bed? There was a little girl from Scandinavia a couple years ago. This is her name, Greta Thunberg. Y'all seen her in the news. She's a hero all around the world. She stepped out in regard to climate change, and she challenged world leaders around the globe to do something. A lot of folks who believe in this love thing might say, well, that's fine because that has to do with climate and that has to do with the environment and the world. She's not trying to, be a Michael Jordan So we'll let this one go. You know what, folks? This girl who's now 18, because I read a little bit about her today on the internet when I was doing my research, Greta Thunberg, you know what she did? She pursued greatness. It just so happened that her cause in which she was pursuing greatness is one that is accepted by most people, because this is our world, one race, one planet. We've got to make it work. Without that drive, without that ambition to achieve greatness, what's it all for? What's it all worth? So if you don't want to be a multi-deca millionaire, billionaire basketball player, you don't want to be, Muhammad Ali, you don't want to be Tiger Woods, you don't want to be Simone Biles, that's fine. But pick something. Go save the honeybees. We've had issues with that. Pick something that benefits all of us, like this girl. Climate change. But if you're not willing to go out there and be great at something, why are you even willing to get out of bed every day? I love doing that. See you next time.